Let's have a look at how to finish our field study booklet writing section. So we're going to be looking at pages 8, 9 and 11. So on page 8, at the top of the page, you'll see an example of how to draw your landscape sort of from left to right. So on this diagram there's actually a little S indicating the southern end is down to the right hand side of the picture. And it's a very simple drawing showing the slope of the land with some plants of different types growing in different areas along that slope. Now you were asked to draw a representation of your ecosystem when you're out and about in the box on page 8. And it'll look different to this, but I'm going to use this as an example to help you answer the writing space at the bottom, which asks you to describe any trends that you see. First of all, the word describe does not require you to explain the trends. It just requires you to use descriptive language to show what is where on your diagram. And what we're going to look at is, as you move from left to right on your diagram, are there any changes that you can write about? So is there a change in the type of plant or height of trees or the number of plants? So if I use this diagram as an example, as you move from north to south, there is a change because there are high trees on the in the northern end, whereas there are no trees on the southern end. So that is a change in the trend or the pattern, that as you move from north to south, there are no high trees in the southern end. Another trend would be that there are shrubs that can be found more towards the southern end. So no shrubs in the north, more shrubs to the south. Another trend that we could talk about is this trend here, where you have small areas of hills, and you only seem to find these tall grasses on small areas of hill and not on low-lying areas or on slopes. So tall grasses can be found at the peaks of hills, but not on the slopes or the low-lying land. So that would be a description. Have a look at your diagram, have a think about the ecosystem you were in, and write a description of your ecosystem and any trends that you saw. Having a look on page 9, you are asked to draw conclusions. Here is where you actually do have to give reasons for the trends that you saw. So there's an example here. Plants need light for photosynthesis so that they can grow. Different plants are adapted to grow well at different light intensity. Light intensity might be affected by taller plants or buildings or the angle of the slope. So you're going to be asked to write a paragraph to explain how light intensity has influenced the trends. Explain means that you have to say how or why, or you have to give a cause and link it to the effect. So if we're thinking about light intensity, the key word that comes to mind with ecosystems is photosynthesis. So you must use that term when you are explaining. It would be great if you could write out the word equation, because that's going to give you something to talk about in your explanation. Also, that idea of taller plants could be affecting the light intensity. So bigger plants shade out smaller plants. You could put that into your explanation. And if you want to explain, you end up saying therefore or this will result in. So try to use the explain language of a linking word. So things like because or will result in or therefore in your explanation. So you'll be talking about photosynthesis, you'll be talking about the consequences of bigger plants shading out smaller plants. You'll use word equation in there if you can, and you'll be using some linking language like words like therefore and will result in. So pause this video and try to write a conclusion for this part on page 9 in your booklet. So lower down on page 9, it talks about water. Okay, plants need water for photosynthesis. So now you're going to write a paragraph to explain how water availability might have caused the trend or the pattern that you saw in your plants as you were looking at your ecosystem. So this time, have a think about when you're explaining, explain where you think there might be more water. And in the ecosystem that we were looking at, we had a stream at the bottom of the slope. So you might want to comment on that. Then have a think about why more water might be an advantage for plants. Why might more water be a disadvantage for plants? And that might then influence which plants are growing where. So have a think when you're explaining, what do plants need water for? There's a clue at the top here. Try and be scientific. Use scientific words. So use words like photosynthesis. And you might also know something about how plants move substances around inside their stems and inside their leaves. So if you know that, or if you want to look that up, you could include that in your explanation. The last thing that we would like you to do is the last page of your booklet. On page 11, there's a series of thumbs up, across and down. Please fill in the reflection on page 11. We'll be looking at that so that we can get some indication of how you are engaging with the Inner Burrow Learner profile whilst you have been working on your field study.